Kenmore City Council is now in session, and everybody should go grab. The City Council is now in session. Everybody go grab your dinner. All right, now that everybody's had a chance to grab their dinner, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. I want to, we're having a dinner meeting with our state legislators and our King County council member, all folks who do an amazing job representing Kenmore and helping Kenmore grow and get the resources that we need as a city to serve our residents. So I want to welcome you all here for dinner tonight. This is not our normal like ahead of session, pre-session town hall sort of meeting that we normally have. This is more of an opportunity for us to share some of the successes that we've had in partnership with all of you and to talk about some kind of upcoming issues that we're thinking about. So I am going to kick it off to Stephanie to talk about the first few items here. Stephanie?
Thank you so much. So we have some wonderful successes, and none of this work is possible without partnership, whether it's our North King County cities that we do so much work with, or our legislative delegation, our wonderful council member, and our council at the city. And so just excited to share brief updates on these things. And the first one is Connections Health. You may know, many of you were there on August 10th when the center officially opened, and we're thrilled that we got to this point. There was state money and county money that was key to funding that center, and we're just thrilled that we finally have a place for somewhere to go, people to go in need. And I wonder if Councilmember Dombowski wants to say anything more about Connections Health.
Okay, well, thank you, Stephanie, for that. Obviously, this is a big deal and a much needed resource. As you all know, in partnership with your neighboring cities in King County for a number of years now, we built up a co-response model with our law enforcement and first responders. Started out as Radar Navigator and is now CR, the Regional Crisis Response. And Kenmore has been a pioneer and a leader in that space. I was able to secure years ago the kind of some startup money from our MID fund, our Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Fund, which is funded by a tenth of a penny sales tax, about $780,000 at the time. And we've renewed that and grown it. But for folks experiencing a behavioral health crisis, we've had very limited to no places to take them. And that's what's so wonderful about this resource. It's been with some public funding, but largely a private firm has taken the initiative. But the voters generously approved a year ago or so our crisis care center levy, $1.2 billion over 9 years on a spring election, showing, I think, the demand and the interest in this subject. We are hopeful that the provider there will apply for those funds. We're opening will be a model for the 1 of 5 centers that we plan to. Pretty exciting. And I think maybe beyond the substance of the actual service being provided, cooperative model across the cities in the North End to collectively work together to punch above individual weight is maybe the most compelling, I think, thing to come out of it, because that can be and has been replicated. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, so Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Bothell, Kirkland, and Kenmore. So thank you for that. And yeah, a couple of years in the making. So look forward to having them come and give us updates as we go further along. And you did touch on this already, Councilmember Dombowski, the Regional Crisis Response Co-Responder Program. Many of you were at the 1-year anniversary celebration in June for that program. Really excited that we are up and running and have a year under our belt. And there is they are considered a emergency responder. So there is a drop off at the back end of the Connections Health facility for the RACER to also participate in that and bring people who need help there. Anything you want to say about anything else about RACER?
I mean, one thing I would encourage you all to do, I recently went on a ride along in Shoreline with the crisis response team there. And it's very instructive and they do incredible work in the field. We have, they're up, I think maybe 8 or 9 now in field responders across the North End. So fully staffed, we've come a long way since we had half of one on call, you know, a few years ago. And the compassion that those frontline workers bring to their job and the skill set that they have is very, very, very impressive. I'll say that. And they work so well in partnership. Of course, Shoreline, like Kenmore, is a King County contract city. The partnership and the collegiality and that's been developed between the law enforcement officers and the social worker is really impressive to see. But there's nothing like being there, and I spent a few hours doing it, and it's time well spent. Just so you know, our contribution to that work from the county is from our mental illness drug dependence. About $100 million or so, close to that now per year raised. That tax is up for renewal. It's a councilmanic action. I've recently met with our Behavioral Health and Recovery Division, BHERD, we call them. Councilmember Shrevenick will know, county previously. I've encouraged them to just send that renewal over. They want to do it eventually in conjunction with an implementation plan. But I'm hoping we can get the tax renewed so there isn't any question about that, and then have a little more time to work with partners on what will go into the implementation plan. My priority, of course, will be to ensure robust, adequate, ongoing funding for our CR in the mid model. Now other people want it, and that's good. That's a good thing.
And then one more item I was going to cover is exciting new development. As you may know, Mary's Place had been present in Kenmore for many years in an old King County Sheriff's Office police precinct just down the road from here. And they announced to us this spring that they were leaving Kenmore, and we were very disappointed. It was really difficult to hear that news. They are changing their model and away from the congregate model and expanding some capacity in Burien. And so we had a series of meetings, kind of hustled, and thank you to Councilmember Dembowski, who was key, our Housing and Human Services Manager, myself, Mayor Herbig. Several of us got together on some rainy days, looking at other Mary's Place locations and brainstorming what might be possible to not have that space sit vacant. And so happy that Lake City Partners Experiencing Homelessness has come forward and is going to be partnering with us. And I'll turn it over to Councilmember Dembowski to say more about that and just thank him for his leadership and vision. Without you, it would not have happened. So very grateful.
Thank you, Stephanie. As you know, because you were in every single one of the meetings and went on all of our site visits along with Mayor Herbig, that was a team program right there. And Tammy Clark, your professional, was essential and came on those. And my sense is, because I saw most of you at some point as council members, including Councilmember Sasson, who came to one of the meetings, even though she was double booked, it was a high priority. Mayor Herbig attended all of the work sessions. We were all very sad to get the news from Mary's Place they were going to leave. Mayor Herbig led the efforts to bring Mary's Place in, and they had that event kind of celebrating them. It was a two-part event, thanking them for the thousands of people they helped here in Kenmore. Celebrating this new provider for women 55 plus, up to 35 per night. We partnered with Partners Ending Homelessness. William Towie is their director. They run the successful Oak Shelter well as services in Lake City, and do some kind of outreach here in Kenmore, so you're familiar with them. And I just have to say, the professionalism that your staff brought to this at every step of the way, it's unmatched. Your deputy city manager and Tammy Clark, tremendous. When it came time to say, well, we've got this provider, can we do it here? They immediately hooked up Lake City Partners with your permitting folks. They had a pre-app meeting. We ran the trap lines to see if any zoning changes were required. We had great news there. And so it's gonna grease the skids to get that open. And I've heard nothing but positive feedback. The community, my reaction has been 100% yes. And it's just a credit to you, the city, and our shared constituents by this service for a growing need of our unsheltered population, senior women. Pretty exciting, and my gratitude to Kenmore, each of you and your staff for your commitment. Just on the technical things, the county, our office is working with our facilities and real estate people. It's still a no-cost deal. We're gonna have Lake City Partners come in and provide the space. A couple other things, if I might, related to that. In the course of this work, we We took another look at the back parking lot, which has a great view of your heron rookery. Hank goes up there on occasion.
Well, and do you remember when we were out there and a heron flew in just
Yes, a
on
couple
cue
of-
as we were talking about it in the parking?
A little sad there, you know, the parking lot floods and there's grass that's grown up and you had this heron kind of looking for food on an asphalt paved parking lot. So we reached out to our flood district, which is kind of an affiliated government that we run as council members. You pay into it, your residents pay into it by property tax. And we are going to work a deal to have the flood district acquire some land from the county side, restore that habitat into the floodplain there for Swamp Creek, and do a viewing space for the public, if it's up, if you're okay with it, to see the herons. And that's pretty exciting. That's going to move along and could bring some additional dollars to make improvements to the former police precinct. So that's good. Finally, some good recent news. You may recall there was a playground back there that I had gotten a grant money to Mary's Place for the kids. Even though former Mayor Baker and I slid down the slide when we put it in, Nigel, you might have been there too. We're figuring the senior women is not going to be their thing. So I heard from former Mary's Place Exec Director Marty Hartman. She's doing some work down in Tukwila with the asylum seekers. And there's a church there where many of them have been staying. And sadly, there's kids. And she said, Rod, what are you guys doing with that playground? We could use it in Tukwila for the asylum seekers. And so we are, because it was a Mary's Place piece of equipment, I believe we're going to be able to facilitate it down there while we work to find more permanent and stable asylum seekers who are here. So just a good use. I'll keep you all apprised on that, but that's what's going on at that site.
I just have to add, last thing is that I can't wait to have Hank Heron, our mascot, be there for the ribbon cutting on which restoring heron habitat.
Nigel has told me that while he wants to be in the Hank Heron suit, he's a little too tall.
About, yeah, 5 inches too tall for Hank's suit, unfortunately. Well, yes, that's all great. I know that we're definitely, I'm really excited about keeping the building under use and also the improvements in the back of the parking lot. I think that's really great. It's already kind of being given up to nature anyway. Why not just go the whole way and, you know, help increase the habitat that our heron rookery has. I think that's really great. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, this project that you've been talking about, I just want to acknowledge everyone that's been on the team. And personally, thank you, Councilmember Dambaski, because the minute that we heard Mary's Place was gone, you were ahead of it. It was like you were already helping us look for people to come in. By the time I learned that Mary's Place was leaving, you had already reached out and started looking for partners to fill the space. And that means so much to our community. And the way that you were able to tie in the wetland restoration area behind there and actually find a place for the playground, that was just a surprise I hadn't heard about yet. And it just, we're so fortunate to have you serving our community. And thank you. And really, thank you, Nigel, or Mayor, staff, everybody that was a part of this. It's amazing that we were able to do something so quickly and continue helping people in that important building.
Councilor Marshall.
On the connections, I'm a public defender, and I now am representing the last couple of years people held under the Involuntary Treatment Act with mental health diagnoses and held for treatment, oftentimes against their will. But more often, my clients want to work with and collaborate with and stay to get treatment at the facilities. And I was really impressed with the Connections model where they had, when people are brought in crisis, they're going to have a peer counselor or peer personnel right there. So instead of just like probably a very frightening experience with a bunch of professionals, you have like a real human being there. And they told us that was part of their model. So I was very impressed with that when I visited with my 15-year-old kid. So thank you all for that.
I'm going to turn it over to Rob to talk about Public Works. Rob?
Yeah, and I'll first touch on number 4. So the The King County Conservation Futures Grant Program is fabulous. It's something we've benefited greatly from over the years. We've used that money to keep a lot of open space open. And so we've used it a lot. This year, we decided to kind of take a big swing, and you've helped us, and Councilmember Dembowski, you've helped us strategize on that, but we decided to apply for Conservation Futures grant funding for Lake Point's shoreline. So the idea is to acquire the Lake Point shoreline, which is about a little over 3,000 lineal feet of shoreline, about 150-foot wide buffer all the way around the shoreline. And so we applied for the Conservation Futures grant funding, and preliminarily, we're looking good to get that funding. It's a little over $7 million to help us with that acquisition. There's a city match as well that would need to happen. We're in negotiations with the property owner right now. Assuming we can reach a deal, then we would go into the due diligence phase before actually acquiring the property. So the city would do aggressive testing of the soils and the groundwater and the lake sediment and all that. And assuming that can work with ecology and getting their approval, we can close on the property at a future date. But yeah, so we're just thrilled that we took that big swing, and the Conservation Futures Committee is been favorable and is recommending that we get that grant. So we're excited. Big step for Lake Point.
Okay, well, there's a lot of work ahead and you guys are the lead on it. I am very, very excited about this. I mean, my predecessor, Attorney General Ferguson, attended a press conference probably 20 years ago announcing a big development right at Lake Point. There's been 2 or 3 iterations since. And I think our shared constituents value, and you've led because of your Walkways and Waterways program, and they voted for it. They've said, we want access to this beautiful waterfront we have. I think of that site as the Gasworks Park of North King County. An old industrial site, frankly, a fill site, a site maybe with some challenges, that is in a beautiful place. It is an incredibly beautiful place, and people would like to be there. If you want to go to Kirkland, the Caroline Point of Kirkland, you know, it's a Caroline Point of Kenmore. This is, and we met with your city manager, who's been tremendous as a thinker on this and doesn't give up and keeps going. This spring, we met over here in the conference room and said, let's try this. We've got a CFT cycle coming up. We have more money than ever because the voters a couple years ago generously approved an increase. I sponsored the legislation, worked with our executive, Constantine, to restore the conservation futures tax to its full 6.25 cents. It had been whittled down by the 1% cap or 3 cents. We were doing about $25 million a year in acquisitions pursuant to our land conservation initiative. We are now, because of change in policy, we're doing some bonding and the new revenue, doing $100 million a year. That meant we were ready for this. We had the capacity to do it. It is the second biggest ever conservation futures grant approval in the history of the program, second biggest ever. And I think, frankly, we're just getting started on it. This is $7.5 million, 400,000 more from our flood district for the cooperative watershed management program. As you all know, it's important for fish in addition to the recreational opportunities there. And I think it can become not just the crown jewel of Kenmore, but really a crown jewel for North King County. I imagine concerts with your 4th of July, fireworks, or maybe you'll do drones like Renton someday, you know, out there. Just connections to our Burke Gilman Trail to peel off and go out there. Here's what I want you to know. I'm and the county are a partner in your work. It's your vision, it's the community's vision that needs to happen. I just view my job as trying to be supportive of what you want to do, and we have those dollars. Our shared constituents are paying in on their property tax, and it's a good return to them. There's other opportunities with respect to the flood district, with respect to more CFT dollars if we need them. Lowered the match, it used to be 50% with the new money, now it's 25%. I know that the city manager, you know, made to come up with some match money. We can use our parks levy, which will be on the ballot next year for match money, and I want to work with you on that to try and bring some resources there. But this is, it's very exciting, and I just think it's a legacy project that this council can be proud of, and generation after generation will do it. You know, you do it right. I think of the hangar and the plaza and the Native American First Peoples art, and I think there's an opportunity to do that with respect to restoring access to the water to honor our First Peoples, which were so important here in the North End. And it's going to be good. It'll take a little time. It's going to be hard. The site's challenging. They've dumped a lot of stuff out there over the decades, but the opportunity is huge, and maybe someday we'll still get that passenger ferry, Rob. But it's just exciting to be able to work on it with you, and I welcome your feedback, and our state delegation also, you know, can play an important role, like protecting the Wayne land up the way. And can I just say one more thing? I know I've talked a long time. Garrett Holbrook, who's been on my staff since the very beginning, is here tonight. Garrett helped work with the Bothell leadership at the time to preserve that Wayne land, bringing CFT dollars forward, and he's been instrumental in this project. He's got great expertise, and I want to just acknowledge and thank him. He's very shy. So thanks. Okay, now I'll stop talking about it.
Yeah, and if I could just add, Rod has been with us for years on this project and is always asking about it and really offering his help wherever he can, but really appreciate your idea to help us think through this and figure out how to apply for this grant and all the background work you gave to us, helping us strategize. So we also see Lake Point as a candidate for state funding too. I just went to Department of Ecology training this morning and learned about all their funding sources that would be great for Lake Point. And so we'll be coming and talking to you about Lake Point in the future. So stay tuned. So. All right, if I can move on to the next topic. So we're constructing we're in the design phase right now for a Public Works Operations Center, and we're trying to make it as environmentally friendly as we can. We're going to be doing, you know, solar panels and EV charging and things, but we also wanted to go a little bit further and see if we could break away from the conventional HVAC type system and do a geothermal heating system. And so that's where we were able to get all of your help from the state. And so we're just really grateful that we have the funding from in the capital budget, $450,000 to help us do a geothermal heating and cooling system for the Public Works Operations Center. So right now it's under construction. I mean, no, sorry. Why did I say that? It's in design and we plan to be under construction next year. So that's where we're at on that. All right, if I can move on to number 6. And also thank you to all 3 of you for your help in the legislature getting funding for 84th Avenue sidewalks. The parents and the school have been asking for sidewalks there for a long time. They've been organized about it, and it was great news to hear that you were able to secure that money for those sidewalks. They're at Morelands Elementary, and we also know that it is dependent on the Climate Commitment Act staying intact. So we get that. Our city council a few weeks ago adopted a resolution opposing the repeal of the act. So excited about that. And then Shelley, do you want to talk about the 61st Avenue sidewalk? And this is a sidewalk to replace dilapidated sidewalks, and a couple of you went on a bike tour with us and got to see those upheaving panels firsthand. So Shelley, can you give us an update on that?
I'd be happy to. Okay, it's on. So I'm sure you recall when we were out visiting 61st Avenue, the sidewalks there are not accessible. I would say even for people that are walking, it's dangerous. So it's been one of the city's priorities for several years. In the Move Ahead Washington package, there was $3.5 million allocated to replace those sidewalks. But as you recall, when Move Ahead was passed, it was just a lump sum of money put towards projects. It wasn't aged over time. And so in the following session in 2023, the funding for this project was aged and it was put out into the future. So the future column doesn't have a specific date. So in the 2024 session, we pushed to try to get that funding allocated to the upcoming biennium. So we were asking for it to be either in the 23-25 budget or 25-27. And we were having really positive feedback from budget writers. And then when the final budget was released, the money wasn't there at all. It was gone. And so in my outreach to budget writers, it was confirmed that it was an inadvertent mistake to remove the funding altogether, and that they had planned to include it in the upcoming budget. So we have really good records that budget writers have indicated that they intended to keep it in there. So moving forward, we're just wanting to see that included in the next budget cycle.
Councilor Marshall?
Hey, I did not know about the bike ride and the personal visit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nothing helps, right, like seeing a place and seeing what's going on there. So thank you for that and your continued advocacy. I was advocating for it since I came on about 8 years ago, but nothing beats that, so thank you.
Well, and just know it was at great personal risk, so.
All right, that brings us to our current and emerging priorities. I'll turn it over to Shelley to talk about East City Gov Alliance permitting system. Shelley?
Hi, yeah, so we're transitioning to the part of the agenda where we're talking about emerging priorities. And so East City Gov Alliance is an alliance that City of Kenmore is one of the founding members of. I want to give a little bit of legislative history, and then I'll come back to speak about the alliance. In 2023, the legislature passed a bill, Senate Bill 5290. It's referred to as the streamlined local permitting process. The bill kind of had three main components to it. The first is it establishes set timelines for local governments to complete permit review. It created a small grant program for jurisdictions to improve their digital permitting systems. And it directed Department of Commerce to create a work group outlining, considering if it made sense to do a statewide digital permitting system. So fast forward to today, East City Gov Alliance has been around for several years. City of Kenmore, along with other jurisdictions, have created this system called mybuildingpermit.com. And it is a digital permitting system. It has a front end system that is similar interface for anyone who's logging in, using it, a developer, property owner, anyone submitting a permit. And then a back end system that's customized for each jurisdiction. So they have the features that they need. The creation of that front end system was done by East City Gov Alliance. The creation of the back end system is done by private software developers. And so each city purchases their own subscription for that back end system. That's created challenges over the years. And so East City Gov Alliance is in a position to kind of take the leap and develop their own back end system, which has a lot of benefits. Having to have control over how the system functions, be able to customize it per jurisdiction. And I think a big one is not being subject to the whims of a private company who's going to constantly be doing changes and upgrades that may not work for your use. So East City Gov Alliance is developing not only a new back-end system, but also upgrading the front-end system, which is what the customer uses. The total price tag to do the revamp of the front end and the creation of the back end is $5.4 million. And so the East City Gov Alliance members and the participants of the mybuilding.com system are chipping in to pay for that cost. The request of the state is to match dollar for dollar. So 50% would be 2.7 million is the request of the state. It's a request from several jurisdictions, so it's going to be a coalition effort. And I think originally we envisioned it being an operating budget request, but I think it's one of those requests that could fit either operating or capital, so we can be flexible there. But I think at this point, we wanted to make you aware that that's something that's coming. We would anticipate support from not only the jurisdictions, but perhaps building developers as well, who have been asking for a standardized system. The hope would be that this kind of platform could then be adopted by more jurisdictions in the future. Not necessarily mandating a statewide system, because shockingly, the Department of Commerce work group came back and said a statewide system doesn't make sense, but that perhaps this interim option where jurisdictions choose how they want the system to work would be a better solution. And then the front end would be the same for every user.
Well, that sounds great. And I think there's not nearly enough time and effort and money spent on upgrading our IT systems. So I commend the eCity, eGov City Alliance for looking into that. So it sounds like it was previously, the back end was software as a service. Is the 2.7 million ask for the state, is that just to get it up and running, and then cities would be independent in maintaining it from that day forward? You wouldn't be coming back for operational costs? Okay.
Correct. Yes,
Thank
this
you.
is just the creation of the software, the initial cost. The maintenance moving forward, that would be the responsibility of the members of the alliance.
So I love the idea of having reliability and predictability. I'm wondering if there have been any predictions on how that might impact the permit process and cutting down on permit times.
Yeah, that's actually something that we're developing the fact sheet for this, and that's something that we're wanting to incorporate. I think we expect the timelines to go down by having that predictable for the user to have the same system and for the staff on the back end to have a not constantly changing. One of the issues that came up when Department of Commerce did their study on permit timelines is jurisdictions are doing the best they can with the resources they have. Staff turnover within a permit office is really challenging. And so having better technology to assist staff, I think will be helpful in that. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Rob?
Yeah, I have a question. If you could include on the fact sheet, just some sense of what the current costs are for the subscription model, I think it is how it's done, just to have that as a comparison for the cost projection.
Yeah, we can do that.
We actually had a presentation from them Monday where they had all of those numbers, so we have those available.
And my coworkers in our permitting department are really frustrated with the back end system that we currently have. It's a proprietary off the shelf system, and it creates a ton of work because it's not tailored to Kenmore. Their representatives are always changing. The support isn't what it needs to be. And so if we can work with other cities to get a back end system that is tailored to our needs, and that we can have more control over, I think that will help permit turnaround times. Because our folks spend a lot of time dealing with the less than satisfactory system right now, so.
All right, Rob, implementation of the climate action plan.
Yeah, so the city council adopted a climate action plan over 3 years ago. It was May of 2022. And since then, they've been putting their money where their mouth is. So they actually, in early 2023, increased the garbage utility tax and the natural gas utility tax to fund the implementation of a climate action plan. So that included hiring staff, climate action plan program manager, and outreach and other programs. We've been working with solar companies to really promote Solarize Kenmore, making sure everybody knows about the incentives to not only have solar on the roofs, but to convert to heat pumps and EV and all those things. But we actually, we're still going to need additional funding from the state to actually help us implement our EV charging infrastructure plan, our urban forestry management plan, and all those things to reduce carbon or to take carbon out of the air. So,
No surprise, I have thoughts about this.
yeah.
I have a couple questions. One was, how close are you going to be in your climate action plan to meeting the guidelines of 1181?
That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I don't have the expertise to answer that
I would
question.
love a briefing at some point
Okay.
if that's at all possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And secondly, I just wanted to make you aware, come January, there should be about $10 million available for cities who choose to implement 1181 before they're required. So
Yeah.
be aware that's coming out from Commerce.
Yeah, and I know we've adopted the element in our comprehensive plan, even ahead of 1181. So we're still, making sure we're in compliance when it comes to comp plan and things like that. So
That's amazing. As I always say, Kenmore always punches above its weight limit.
Try. Culvert funding. Let's explore
Yeah.
our Rapid Progress Plus.
yeah, so we have this thing we call Rapid Progress Plus. And what it is we have 150 culverts in our town that are fish blocking. And what we did is we hired an engineering firm to do an assessment of all those and say, okay, of all the fish blocking culverts, which ones would have the most impact on habitat if we replaced them? And so based on that, and it was scientific and there was a great methodology behind it. And based on that, they came up with a list of about 15 culverts that would really have a pretty big impact on salmon if they were replaced. One example is stream 0057. We're going to change the names of our streams, by the way. Yeah. What's that?
But it's so memorable. 0057.
Yeah, and they're on the south side of the city, and there's 4 culverts. A couple of them are residential, 2 of them are under streets. But if we remove those 4 culverts, we would open up 14,000 lineal feet of streams if we replace those 4 culverts. That's just one example. And obviously those 4 culverts were in the top list of culverts. But the city council, realizes what an important thing this is. And so we presented them some options. I think the first option was stay the course, which is what we've been doing, which is replacing a culvert once every 3 years or so. And then all the way up to Rapid Progress and Rapid Progress Plus. And that's being really aggressive and replacing a bunch of culverts in the next 10 years. And so they selected that option and again, put their money where their mouth is. They increased the surface water utility fees to help provide matching funds for grants. But again, we're going to be very reliant on state funding to help us with the matching. One other that I'm really excited about is, WashDOT under that court order is obligated to replace a bunch of their culverts. Near the top of that list for WashDOT is stream 0056, also known as Chottle Creek. And that's the one that runs right along the Jack in the Box and goes under 522 and right by Log Boom Park. And that was also on our bike tour as well, you might remember. But WashDOT's obligated to replace that, and they're on track to do that. But there are 3 blocking culverts downstream from there. And so we are partnering with WashDOT to apply for a Federal Highway Administration grant to the tune of about $15 million for the 2 entities to replace all those culverts. So not just the one under 522, but the 3 that are downstream. And that grant application is due here in the next couple of weeks. And we've been getting letters of support, and I think it's a pretty unique partnership that the Federal Highway Administration is going to see when they see that $15 million grant for us to replace those culverts there on streams on Chettle Creek. So, yeah.
Councilmember Shrubnik?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this, and I just also want to give a shout out to our community. We did a survey to gauge the appetite for those various levels of mitigation of the culvert issue, all the way up to Rapid Progress Plus, and our community was all over it, and they really wanted the highest level of investment. And so that helped us make that decision. So I have to hand it to our community.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and this is going to tie back to Climate Action Plan and Rapid Progress Plus. Part of the philosophy that our council has taken in choosing Rapid Progress Plus is one of the things that the city of Kenmore really can do for the environment and climate action is actually our Climate Action Plan has a heavy emphasis on water, salmon recovery, trees, environment, the climate resilience, I believe it's called. And that is a big part of how we were able to, as a council, come together and vote forward in addition to the surveys for this incredibly important work, because we need our water to survive and we need our salmon. And us doing this work is something that I think we are all, as you've heard, very excited about, and your support as we're moving forward on this work is greatly appreciated.
I'm going to kick it over to Shelley to talk about a brand new issue you've never heard about, the city fiscal sustainability problems that we face due to the 1% property tax cap. Shelley?
Sounds like you already hit the ball out of the park there, Mayor.
Sorry.
So of course, this is not a new issue, but we would not be honest with you if we didn't bring it up in this context. So we know that you are all supportive when it comes to, and to large extent, recognize the challenge that cities have when it comes to the 1% cap. I think as we head into this next legislative session, you may be hearing from more cities that you perhaps haven't historically heard from. Kenmore has, as a residential bedroom community, property tax is one of the primary revenue streams for the city. And so for years, the city has had to come up with creative solutions to balance its budget. I get the sense just in talking to other jurisdictions around the state that it's starting to happen in places that where property tax is not their primary revenue stream, but because it's the city fiscal structure is broken, it's starting to hurt others as well. So know that you guys are supportive, and so we would just ask for your continued support, and anything that you need from us as you talk to your colleagues and leadership about how to advance this, let us know. We want to be a resource to you.
I would say beyond just the 1%, which is, a huge limit to our revenue streams, but also, as Shelley was kind of alluding to, just the overall structure that the state gives cities to collect revenue regardless of the 1%. But outside of that, even is just structurally, a little broken. And, you've heard from other cities that are facing the same issues that we are. Some are in much worse conditions than we are, but we need to figure out a way to make it so cities can fund what we need to be able to fund and do it in a way that is less regressive than the current setup that we have currently as both a state and with the tools that cities have. We can't keep paying for everything off the backs of the poor and the middle class, frankly. So I know you all know that, but just had to say it. Shelley, dedicated revenue for affordable housing?
Yeah, that's an excellent segue into the next topic. As you all know, the state has a tiered real estate excise tax, and portion of that is dedicated to affordable housing. The state has invested a significant sum into affordable housing over the last several budget cycles. And we know that the problem is still larger than the revenue that exists. And so both at the state level and at the local level, we're wanting to be part of the solution. What do those creative revenue options look like? One that has kind of percolated over the last 2 years that we've been really excited about is a tiered REIT, but at the local level. I know that was part of a conversation in the REIT bill that was considered the last session. The challenge that we heard about the local tiered REIT was from Department of Revenue, saying that it complicated the administering of property taxes. And so our kind of request then is, okay, Department of Revenue, can you come up with a recommended solution of how a tiered REIT could work? Because to the mayor's point, we don't want the solutions to be on the backs of those who can't afford it already. So we know you understand that well and mostly just want to be your partner in finding solutions.
Mayor, could I jump in on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know you're facing some of the
First
same
of all,
issues we are.
Let me start by thanking our state legislators and the legislature generally for the significant increase in authorities that you've given us in recent years, including the recording fee. It's making a difference, and we are distributing at the county as pass-through agency. I hate to quantify it, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a lot that we put out.
Councilmember, could you move your mic a little bit closer? to your
Sorry.
mouth?
Okay. Anyway, the state legislature has really been engaged on this and moving the needle in the right direction. And we are seeing it locally. Our capacity to send more money out has been big in TOD funds. You may have seen some news on this recently. Councilmember Zahalai, our budget chair, I serve as the vice chair of the budget committee with him. We've co-sponsored, he's the lead on this, on the second. Regional workforce housing. We know about the 0 to 30% AMI. Those are the hardest to fund, and we're prioritizing a lot of the dollars that you have enabled us to give into that space. But there is that missing middle, say 50, 60% AMI on up, where the rents that folks are able to pay are actually able to help service some of the cost to build the projects. And at the county, this is interesting, you may have a similar issue. We have about maybe $12 billion of debt capacity that we could issue, but we don't have the revenue in large part because of the 1% cap or other structural issues to pay back those bonds. So we've used about 3 billion of that. We've got 9 billion unused capacity. If we had a revenue source, we could use more of that to advance the public goal. What this proposal that Councilmember Zahalai and I are advancing would be to take $1 billion of that capacity and deploy it for workforce housing. And the source for the repayment is the rents generated in that housing. There's a lot of variations and wrinkles on that. There's special bond financing, 6230, which you can do with private issuers. We could come in, as we've done with the King County Housing Authority, and do a credit enhancement where we don't actually issue any debt, but we guarantee their debt. And because we have a AAA credit rating, it lowers the cost of borrowing, lowers the rate. We've done partnerships like that. This proposal is kind of in its infancy, but it has a lot of promise. Dwight Dively, our Director of Finance and Budget, we call him Professor Dively. He likes it. He thinks there's value there. And we're going to kind of work it up. We may do some jump starts, but it is kind of on the magnitude, the scale that I think we need to bring to accelerate this, particularly where interest rates, as you all know, have risen here in recent years. I know we're at the peak and hopefully we're gonna start going down, but that stalled a lot of projects. I don't know how your permit counter is, but around the region, you know, the permits are down. People aren't applying. And those that have permits granted aren't going out of the ground. And some folks out of the ground, as you see in downtown Seattle, have stopped because of financing issues. So we think this is a sweet spot that we can responsibly, as responsible fiscal stewards of the county budget, bring to bear our strength and our expertise to help some of these projects go forward. The Housing Authority, County Housing Authority is supportive. Labor is supportive. The Chamber of Commerce in Seattle is supportive. Private developers supportive. And I wanted to put it on your radar screen, let you know we're working on it, be available to answer questions. But as Kenmore, I know it's, you know, on your adopted policies, it's one of your top priorities consistently and has been for years. You have sites that are capable of more intense development, including the site you own, including the park and ride, you know, where there are projects. This is a potential to bring real dollars forward to actually get rooms built and tours available for folks to move into on an affordable basis. So we're working on that. And I think it has great promise.
Yeah, I saw the Times article. I appreciate the leadership that you all are taking on that because it is, we need so much more housing than even the $1 billion we'll get, but that's a huge, huge chunk. It's a huge investment.
And, you know, the models worked in other ways on the state books, laws. There's something called industrial revenue development bonds. And that's a little bit of an older model. It's been there a long time where if you know, hey, we want industry to come in, we as a government can issue debt and take it back from the revenue from the industry. This is that for housing. This is that for housing.
And actually kind of related to that, you do have an upcoming county parks levy renewal. Rob, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, Councilmember Dombowski, you mentioned this earlier this evening, but next year, the King County Parks levy is up for renewal, and you and I have talked about some possibilities that might affect Kenmore. North End Pool, for example, Lake Point, perhaps. You want to elaborate on any of those?
So just setting the table, you know, 20 years ago, the county's general fund became very strained like yours. We were going to shut down our parks department. A community task force came forward and said, hey, here's a package of recommended reforms. If you do them, you could do we'd recommend that you go to the voters with a levy lid lift to fund parks and open space. We did that. That was the very first shift away from just general funding of government to special levy funding. It's almost become a model now. I mean, we have the Best Starts for Kids levy. We have the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services levy. We now have the Crisis Care levy. We have the AFIS levy, which is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System, which our sheriffs and regional law enforcement partners uses. You'll see that in the February ballot. It's very small, but it's something. But you know, it's you got to put a package together and ask the voters, do you want to buy it? Our voters have every year, every 6 years, renewed our parks and open space levy. The last time I ran an amendment, well, a couple amendments, but one of them was a penny for pools. The executive does a real good job putting this together, and they're out doing their listening sessions now. Well, they've completed those, and it'll be on the August ballot. It's usually very popular. The penny for pools thing generated about $44 million last time, some study money, and we did 2 studies up here. Your city manager, Rob, really led those efforts to assess the gap here. The gap that's been left because the last time we really built pools as a region was the forward thrust stuff, and all those pools are done. You know, that we closed the one at St. Ed's, Shoreline tore theirs down. They've aged out. We put a few $1 million, I think maybe 3, into Juanita High School to keep that pool going. We funded these studies, but I think that there's an appetite. I know there's an appetite. I know your constituents, Councilmember Marshall, has been working on this for a long time to do something with pools. I'm hopeful that we'll keep the penny for pools in and maybe grow it. And I think there might be an opportunity to shape it further to say, look, we really, you know, we have the Weyerhaeuser Aquatic Center in South King County. It was built for the Goodwill Games. It's a great regional center. The east side with Splash Forward is working on a big regional pool. North King County we need one or two pools up here. The studies basically said, we gotta have one toward the Bothell side and one toward the Shoreline Lake Forest Park side. You guys are right in the middle. But I think we should engage and see if there's a chance to bring some real dollars to kind of move that forward. The NPRSA, North Shore Park and Rec Service Area, where Councilmember Shrebnick is the chair, and she's doing an amazing job. That's kind of sometimes you get these jobs and you get a bonus job with them. And Councilmember Lutzis also serves, that could be a place to bring some local dollars. We are working in a very methodical way to assess community need with some county grant money that we brought forward, and there's real interest in that. I want to make sure you all know that Woodinville is chasing. They've got a site. They're very interested, and that gets a little bit of a long commute for folks in Kenmore. But things are happening there, and I just want to make sure that we all work together to respond to this really a deficit here in aquatic needs. And I think there's a chance to do it because it's very popular. Also on the parks levy, obviously, we talked about Lake Point. We'll make sure that we've got continued funding for the Burke Gilman Trail. We use it to bring in a lot of match dollars. And, I was hopeful that we could do a climate bond at some point. We passed a motion unanimously now a couple of years ago at the county council to scope that out. The executive is very supportive of the idea. Got the report back just at King County. We've got several $1 billion of identified need. Now, our cities, you remember the K4C partnership, you participate in that regionally. Our limit, we have very limited ways to raise money. It'd be a property tax. Two good things have happened. One, the state, our leaders there, passed the Climate Commitment Act. And that's over $100+ million that would come to King County to help with our electrification plan at Metro. And other investments. We obviously hope that doesn't go away. It has a real bad impact. We also passed a resolution Tuesday opposing the repeal. And the federal bipartisan infrastructure law has brought big federal money, and that's made a difference. I still think there's room for us to bring more resources to the climate fight. And I think that rather than maybe a standalone levy, a space in the regional parks and open space levy could make some sense for kind of like the penny for pools thing. One penny raises over 6 years, $48 million, maybe a little more in the next cycle. So it's not insignificant. And key to that, I think, is you face the same challenge we do, is sharing that money with our regional partners. We are partners with you in the K4C. We have to be cognizant as the big county that you also have needs. And when we raise a tax, it really kind of practically squeezes you. There's only so much capacity out there. So I hope we could work together if that's of interest to you. Climate for now a number of years when you do your retreats has been your number 1 or number 2 priority. And I think there's a way to work together to make sure that you're proactively included to help you activate your climate action plan from a regional funding course. So Parks Levy, it's time to engage now. It'll be on the August ballot. It will pass. And maybe we'll even get Rob Currency's dog park in there. All right, sorry, I went a little long there.
And all I have left is other. I know that Rob wanted to maybe mention Metroflex, talk about the opening that's happening Monday.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And Rod, thanks again, or Councilmember Dombowski, thanks again for advocating for us. So Metroflex is that kind of new pilotish type program here, and it's been serving the Juanita area and part of North Kenmore. And it's a great program. It's helps with that last mile, and but it could do so much more. And so you noticed that, and so you advocated for that. So they're recently announcing, well, you know what? I'll let you say what it is.
Hey, so Metroflex, we've done a lot in the South County. It's the minivan, and it's on demand on your phone, or if you don't use one of these, call us, and we'll come pick you up. And we will take you to, interestingly, the Montlake Terrace light rail station. Its service actually is going to go into a little bit of Snohomish County, but we are covering almost all of the rest of Kenmore, all the way over to Ballinger Way, and then some into Lake Forest Park. And I asked Metro to include it in this restructure, which starts Saturday, because we have, over my time on the council, I've seen the fixed route service that used to serve North Lake, generally not just the neighborhood, but North Lake neighborhoods, including in Lake Forest Park, be reduced because it has the density, the historic, low density development. It makes it hard to run a fixed route bus, even the small ones, to where it makes financial sense. So this on-demand service, I ask for your help in educating our shared constituents because it costs the same as a bus ride. It's very affordable. They pick you up at your door. They'll take you to light rail. And interestingly, it's a little complicated. If you're over on the south side of 522 in that part of Kenmore, it'll take you to the park and ride, and then you can get the next one up there. So it's probably not the most efficient way to get to light rail, but you can do it. And it doesn't have to go to light rail. You can go to shopping, to your medical needs, whatever you want. It's really we've had some great success with it, but we wanted folks to use it. So you'll see the vans out there, and I'll be mailing out to about 4,000 households is the number of households they'll be covering to let them know that it's there. Metro Transit is mailing. So we're really trying to boost it. And I really have great gratitude to Metro for tolerating my request to include. I try not to be a transit planner. They are the experts, but this one seemed to fit and they agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your persistence on that. That's huge. Yeah.
I've taken more than one or two seashore meetings or ETP meetings where Metro was presenting to poke them on that when they were presenting about Metroflex down south, because we used to have buses that ran up 68th and down 61st, and there used to be ways for people to connect down to 522, and we haven't had those for years now. And if you want people to take the bus, you have to get them a way to get to the bus. We can build all the sidewalks in the world, but when you're talking a 1.5 mile walk to the bus, people aren't going to do it. So I really appreciate the innovation that Metro is approaching this issue. Like I was talking with the previous general manager, and he was telling me, he doesn't look at it as a transit agency, but as a mobility agency. And I think that's the way to be looking at it, is how do you move people around, regardless if it's a bus or something else. And I appreciate their willingness to kind of think outside the box and look for innovative solutions to get people the mobility that they need. Councilmember Marshall?
So it's definitely got to be in the mornings. Is it also in the evenings? So you could we're going to catch the shuttle. We go downtown on the light rails, catch the show.
Yes, it's all day. And in addition, we've added some peaks, peak trips from the park and ride. The Route 331, we've modified it from the park and ride. It will now go to the light rail station as well. So there is fixed route service to there. And if you haven't ridden it, I think most of us, it's incredible. It's a powerful, transformative, awesome investment, so and pretty exciting. Anyway, you can check the details of this restructure. Some folks, if you lose service, you don't like it, but the big pictures are we are trying to run more east-west routes, trying to get more folks to the light rail spine, and eventually to the more investments on the 522 when those come on. We are extending into the evenings, so we're the span of service we're growing, and then weekend service. The system took quite a hit from COVID. From 440,000 boardings a day to less than half that. We're back up now to about 60%, but the profile is different. People are taking it later in the evening, a lot more at weekends. We're almost 100% or more at weekends. That downtown commute thing is over, except for midweek. We used to have a peak system, morning and evening, but I won't say it's over, but it's dramatically changed. And so we're trying to change our system to be responsive.
I believe I'll see you Wednesday at the, am I going to see you Wednesday at the announcement or something at Kenmore Middle School, I think next week on Metroflex?
See there.
Okay. Yes, of course. Representative.
I really appreciate that the Metroflex is expanding. I had some opportunities to use it, and it couldn't be easier. If you've ever used an Uber, it's really pretty much like that, but instead of costing you so much money, it's the same fare as if you were to ride a bus, and it provides a transfer so that when you do get on the bus or the light rail, that's covered. So it's really brilliant to have that kind of on-demand transportation. And I just wanted to tell you an example. When I took it, I was, of course, plying the driver with all kinds of questions. And this was early on during the early part of the adoption of it or the sort of pilot of it. And he said, oh, well, there's somebody in your neighborhood that uses it pretty consistently. There's a mom and calls the thing in the morning, takes her 2 children, drops them at Arrowhead Elementary, and then takes her down to the transit center and she grabs her bus into work. And it's like it's just become part of her routine. And that's great because she's able to connect in with that spine. So anyways, just really want to commend you for that and encourage folks to give it a shot. You can just load the app onto your phone from your Google or Apple store.
Have to make sure we get that in the future newsletter. Really push it out there. Well, before we adjourn, does anybody have anything else to our state folks want to, I don't know. Is there anything that you'd like to make sure we're aware of, or if not, that's fine also.
I'll just say I'm really happy to see the deep attention on the culverts issue in particular. I know that's very expensive and very complicated. It's hard to keep everything organized and tracked, and it's just great to see that work is all happening. And it's obviously something that we're very engaged with at the state level, and a lot of money going into that, and making sure that all of those dollars are going to be effective and coordinated with local culvert efforts is really important, because that's the only way to really make it all work. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah. Councilmember Sassen.
I'm so impressed with the idea that all of you, or however many of you, came for the bicycle tour and so now I'm envisioning that we need a combined kayak around Lake Point to visit the new culvert. So I just want you to know I'm going to spearhead that. That sounds fun to me.
Councilor Lucis.
I just quickly wanted to say thank you to all of you. I think we're so fortunate and lucky as a city to have representatives at the state and county level who care about what we're doing here and are open to supporting us and listening to us and advocating for us. And so we're very fortunate. So thank you, Councilmember Dembowski, Senator Stanford, Representative Dewars and Globa. And so thank you. Yeah,
Representative Dewar.
I have said this before, but I think it bears repeating after hearing about all your wins, that Kenmore is a very special place. You do punch it above your weight class. And I think you do have a really wonderful synergy between council and staff and your residents. It's very rare and special. So protect it.
Rob.
Councilmember Dembowski, you mentioned dog park. Yeah, I should have put that on the agenda. I know. Yeah, we don't have a lot of great spots for a dog park in Kenmore, and you and I have talked over the years about how there might be space at Big Fin Hill Park, and so yeah, I'd love to keep that conversation going. And yeah, part of a parks levy that might be a good fit. So thanks for mentioning that.
So if I can, just one more thing. You guys are a valued partner with law enforcement. Our King County Sheriff's Office obviously provides services for you. And I know in your adopted policies coming out of your retreat that reforming system of law enforcement is a priority for this council. You've written that you want to shift us away where possible from the old arrest, prosecute, jail model to something that's more therapeutic and restorative where it makes sense. We're in alignment on that. I'm serving this year again on our budget leadership team, which is 4 council members, Councilmember Zahala, myself, Councilmember Perry, and Councilmember Mosqueda. I'll be chairing, we've divided into panels, the public safety panel. If you want to share thoughts or anything with me as we work through all of our public safety budgets, that's the sheriff, the public defender, the prosecutor, the courts, our pre-filing and post-filing diversion programs. It's 75% of our general fund. It's a big thing to do, and we're trying to make it better. Let me know. We've had some good progress in this area in recent years with charter amendments. The Councilmember Zahala and I worked on, and a lot of those things are subject to negotiation with the union. And I'm just really pleased to report one of my big priorities, and I think it's shared, was for our OLEO, Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, to have the power for independent investigations when something goes wrong. Historically, they have not had it. And we pushed this time, and it is now in the contract that for the first time, our Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, when there's a complaint sense, can do their own independent investigation of the police department. And I think that's consistent with your priorities there. You also, in your priorities, mentioned the support for body cameras. We advanced that finally. We were long overdue. And those are being rolled out. And in my discussions with officers, with our deputies, it's going well. Now it's costly, and I know you had that on your budget, for public records and things like that. But I'm very excited about that, and I hope you're hearing positive things about it.
Definitely.
I was just going to add that, yes, I was just talking to our chief, and we meet regularly about all things law enforcement. And he was saying we've had some difficult situations in Kenmore recently. And he was saying those are the times that you're so glad for a body worn camera, because often later when people are contradicting what they said at the scene, or there are various witnesses who have varying memories of what happened, you can refer back to those cameras. So I think our law enforcement team is very happy to have that as another tool in the toolbox. I know it does create more work on the other end, and I know that the sheriff's office, we've had long conversations about the public records piece of people requesting body worn camera footage, and that's a whole new arena for public records professionals. And so that's something I know that we'll keep talking about as we go forward.
Yeah, thank you. And the final change we did there, of course, was to ask the voters, did they want to shift from an elected to an appointed sheriff? And that's gone back and forth from the original 68, modern charter. They said, yeah, and I had sponsored that one. Let's try the appointed. We had some real challenges with the leadership there, and politics got to be, was played as to who was going to run that. I am so proud of Patty Cole-Tyndall leading the department. I just want you to know there's tremendous stability. She's brought in tremendous leaders, and Rob, your city manager, has served with the Council of Contract Cities and been a real leader there. And we have pledged, if we're going to make any policy changes, to work in partnership with that advisory group and proceed kind of carefully and in consultation. So I think those changes overall and collectively have been well received and are going well, and that the department is doing well. People want to come work for us in that department. We're a progressive department that's, I think, well run, and it's open to, look at Racer, right? The correspondent, they are open to and want to be part of a progressive, modern law enforcement agency. And I want to just thank you for being, I don't want to say a customer, but a partner. Without our suburban city partners, we would not be able to run our sheriff's department. Just in the rural area, it costs too much to serve that few people that far apart. So you're the 10 or so cities that partner with us are essential. I know you're looking at kind of a regional, it's on your agenda, regional law enforcement perhaps model, because I know we're expensive. And I'm just here to say, happy to work with you on those issues.
I would say we are very happy customers and partners. So thank you. Yeah, Councilmember Kolba, Representative Kolba.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to go back and kind of underline a few things. I think all of us here really feel like we are serious about safety and safety in our communities. And we hear the stories and we hear the requests, of the public and how they want to have their cities safer. And so that combination of having the crisis responder system so that law enforcement can pay attention to things that they are well trained for, and yet also they'll have the mental health professionals there so that they can work on the things that they're good at. And then you have the place to take someone who may be in crisis and needs some help. That Connections Health Crisis Response Center is so important, not only for the reasons you talked about, but when law enforcement can have a very quick turnaround, 10, 15 minutes, and then they're back to the beat, that means that the rest of the community is safer, as well as that individual who is going to get what they really need, which of course in jail, nobody's getting mental health services. No one's getting behavioral health. So I really appreciate that. But one other thing that I wanted to highlight is that there are kind of two sides to that Connections Crisis Response Center. One is, like we talked about, the other is, as an individual in the community, if you're feeling like you need someone to talk to, something is happening, you can walk in. They will get you an assessment. And I liken it to, you know, how we have on our physical medicine side, if, you know, it's the weekend and you fall off a ladder and your ankle is swelling up, we have a variety of things that you can do depending on the acuity. You can call the 24-hour nurse line usually, and they can give you some advice of where to go. And that might be put some ice on it, stay off it, go to the doctor on Monday. It might be, you better go to the urgent care. There may be something they need to x-ray, or it might be, oh yeah, there's a bone sticking out, you're gonna need to go to the emergency room. But for that full range of things that might be going on for you, we have an option. And so for me, this is the beginnings of building that kind of system out for behavioral health, whether it's a small problem or a big problem or something in between. We're going to have what you need. And I can't stress that enough. I think it's so important. And so for everybody who has worked together on both the response system and the connections, I just really appreciate the teamwork among all of our cities and the commitment to really being serious about safety. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you. Well, again, thanks to each and every one of you for all of the work you do for Kenmore. We all really appreciate your partnership and your leadership. And we appreciate your time tonight, and I hope you enjoyed dinner. And with that, Kenmore City Council is adjourned.